Ready? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Facility Committee meeting of March 18th, 2025. I hope everyone got a little chance to go outside today because it's so beautiful and a little, I think spring is in the air. So with that, I am going to turn it over, a public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, and administrative remarks, Mr. Morris.
Thank you. Good evening. So I just have one. I just want to make a brief announcement that this Thursday at 8:30 a.m. we are meeting with the steering committee. So we haven't given them an update since last fall. Just a lot of permitting, cleaning up the plans and prints. So nothing exciting happening with the project. But now that we're got the color renderings and everything, and the plans are pretty well complete, we're going to meet with them this Thursday, give them an update, and then we expect probably reconvene with them again, maybe towards the beginning of the school year, hopefully after we receive the bids and prior to actually breaking ground. So, just wanted.
Thank you. Review of minutes. Everyone okay with the minutes?
All right, thank you. So tonight we have a recommendation to approve plans and specifications for the release for public bidding for some demolition at Ithan. This was overall part of the Ithan project, but there's a desire to break that out due to scheduling and phasing. So it does encompass the two residence structures at Roberts Road, as well as the annex building at Ithan, currently used for storage, and would include the installation of an additional swing set and hard play surface for the kids that would be utilized during construction. So, again, this is a recommendation to go out to bid. We're not approving any contractors or any contracts with this. We're just soliciting for bids, get pricing back, and then the board will come back to in May, and you'll see that in the schedule later. We'll come back in May with the pricing and a recommendation. At that point, the board would have an opportunity to approve the contracts.
Yeah, I think you have a
Yeah,
question.
just before we get started,
Yep.
can you review why we're demolishing the two residences there?
Yeah, so as you know, in previous, we consolidated the property, so there's multiple factors. One is they're non-conforming as far as being residence properties for the township, but more importantly, they were identified in the feasibility study as needing a substantial amount of work to bring them up to code and get them back up to where they need to be. We actually incurred some damage 2 weeks ago from a tree limb that came down during the storm. So there's a little bit more work that has to be done with them. So that's kind of basically why.
And we've only been renting out one of the houses
Yeah,
in
the
the
other one's
last.
used for storage.
Yeah, the other house, since we lost since we no longer had a tenant in the house, it needed a lot of work. It's actually been being used as storage right now.
Yeah.
And we no longer have the resident. She
Cor-
has some. Right.
Correct, yep, she's been out.
So did we run a cost benefit on if we were to fix them up and rent them out versus just, I mean, it's already
Yeah, I
a
think-
sunk cost that we have them.
Yeah, I
so-
think previously that had been done for the amount of rent in this area and the amount of work. I mean, we were talking repairs and renovations in hundreds of thousands of dollars for those houses. So they're in pretty rough shape. So.
And keep in mind, these houses it's an interesting history. We, as a district, and I don't, off the top of my head, won't have all the dates, but if you go way back, we bought them because we were, thinking as a district, I say we, this is none of us at the table were here when they were bought, but all of our time. We bought them because of the way the property is set up, so that if we ever wanted to do any construction on the property, those were really the only two houses that were maybe preventing us from, building whatever we'd like to build. And then we sold them, and, we sold them, and then a few years later, we turned around and bought them again. Again, I'm going way back. So the reason we have held on to these houses is because, and I think this showed a lot of foresight from previous boards, previous superintendents, the realization that any type of project on that property, we would want that property and probably be looking at demolishing, those two houses. And we're at that time now. We're at that time, we're about to do a project where we've done the analysis and realized that, for this project to move forward, it's going to provide for us, a lot of opportunity and ease within the scope of the project, where we're building different pieces within land development, and the reality of we're really not designed to be in the business to be renting out properties as well.
And there is a major, the sewer line for Ithan Elementary does cut down through one of the properties, so, again, if we didn't own them, right, and we were gonna build, there would be a whole easement and maintenance issue and stuff like that with the sewer line, so.
I'm not proposing we stay in the property business, but it just occurred to me that I didn't think that they were in the area where we're building, but you're talking about the sewer line actually is in that area?
Yeah, the sewer line encroaches the first home, as well as the retaining walls and the steep slopes, and then so you do have some encroachment on the properties and the houses with regards to grading of Ithan. And we kind of went through that in a previous presentation, I believe, kind of showed that and outlined that as well.
Would we be using that area at all for staging or construction vehicles?
No,
There's
not-
no plan, so there's no plan to go?
Not during the construction of Ithan. We do plan on turning it back, where the houses are now, we plan on turning them back into flat grass area or green space, right? What we do in the future with that, because we do have the entrance there off of Roberts Road, and then we do have a nice flat area there. What we do with that in the future, then, we'd have to decide.
And it was a consideration by our design team to use that as a staging area, but the steep slope made that a challenging place to use as staging. I'm seeing a lot of heads nod, so yes.
So I was going to introduce our design team. We have Steve Breslin from Steve Behrens from Breslin Architecture, and Walt Tack from Site Logic, our construction management. So tonight, they're going to go through the presentation. They're going to talk about just some schedule updates, scope of work, cost estimating, and then the overall project schedule as it stands. So I'm going to just cue up the presentation here real quick. And I'm going to hand it over to the design team.
Good evening. Just wanted to give you a quick update on the project. As Ken indicated, we're presenting the idea to get an early bid package on the demolition of the schools and get a temporary playground installed. Project is moving along well. We're making good progress, I feel, in the permitting front. Things that we're having good conversations with the township, getting responses back from the county Department of Health. So that's moving along pretty much as planned right now. Continue to keep our fingers crossed and hope we continue that direction. But right now it seems to be moving in a positive direction. So the project at hand, okay, first of all, wanted to, again, update you on upcoming board meeting schedule. As we indicated, the intention is to ask the school board to authorize release of bid for this early demolition and playground package. We will be back in May in front of you, just providing you an update. But there will not be any board action intended for that meeting. In May, we intend to come back to you with the bid results and request the board to approve the award of those contracts. In June, we intend to ask the board for authorization to release the major project for bid to contractors. That will be bid in July, and then we'll intend to be coming back to the school board in August to request approval of award of those contracts. So,
And I feel like every time we see a schedule, we need to manage our expectations on these schedules. I mean, first and foremost, the authorization to go out to bid, when we look at that June schedule for that, that's contingent on everything in the next couple of months continues to go, hopefully as planned, with permitting and all of those pieces. Any type of change, in the next couple of months could impact that as we move forward. And just also for the board as well, the board has asked, what are the off-ramps? So we're looking for board approval next week. It would move to next week for the board to approve this to go out to bid for the demolition project, but you're not voting on the approval of that until the May. You would actually award the contract for the demolition.
Do you want us to hold questions till the end, or should we? So I thought that we were not going to put anything on the August board agenda that involved, this is a huge expenditure of money to award these contracts. And we've been accused of, whatever we do in August, everybody's down in Stone Harbor. And so it's like you're trying to hide something. So I thought we were going to avoid doing this in August. And now we're awarding a big contract in August. And I think that we need to be cautious of doing that. How did we end up in August on this?
It's basically, it's just, we're trying to start construction in October. If we wait till late September, we will be probably not starting construction until later October. Just trying to get construction started as soon as we can, save as much good weather as we possibly can for construction, but that's the primary motivation.
I think we were also concerned, like, we don't want to hold up for a board meeting, like, to be the reason why. But I do think we can do some community messaging and make sure that it's out there that this is, we've certainly been communicating with the community. I mean, I know we now have a new timeline, but once we are prepared to go out to bid, we can make sure that we properly message it to the community.
So I'm just being cautious of the administration and the board. We have been accused in the past of major actions that we've taken in August as trying to hide something because people aren't paying attention over the summer, then they deserve their summer break. And so I don't want this to be looked at. Like, I just want to be sure we cover ourselves there, that it's not, oh yeah, you voted on that in August when everybody was away.
And I think we can continue to advertise that. I mean, the reality is, as we all know, we did not pick it for that reason at all. We
Prefer not to,
and
right.
we were hoping to be, to be earlier than that.
As we move on, if this becomes a concern, could we ever consider a special meeting of the board the first week of September? There's other options, should we be worried about optics or communication. So I think
certainly
we
be
can
an
problem solve for that if we see that's an issue.
Yeah, that would certainly be an option if we need to
And
do something like that.
Yes, and our, we will communicate, and we've been doing that throughout this project, is overly communicating it. And actually, if you think about it, our public comment allows for comment even if you're not here. So we actually have some, mechanisms that people can still, be involved, even if it's August.
So I know that there's residents out there that are not aware of the magnitude of this project. I know that because I talk to them, and they're like, what? What are they doing with hyphen, even at this point? And it's no fault of anybody up here. I know we've talked about it ad nauseum, but just don't want them to be surprised by an August vote.
And, the rubber meets the road when you get the bids back, so it is an important meeting. I just had one more question about timing. There's no concern that if we receive bids for this early demolition project in May, there's no concern that turnaround time is very tight to be shovel in ground and starting this project in June to take advantage of the, people leaving the campus?
Yeah, no, not because it's a demolition, right? So we're not relying on long lead times with playground equipment or anything like that. It is all mainly demolition work. So as you'll see later in the scope of work, which we'll go over, it does encompass tree work, and then the demolition of the structures, some grading, some infilling, some seeding, and things like that. So, because the scope of work and the actual specifications are small, right? The design team can turn around that due diligence on the contractors and the bids and everything like that relatively quickly. We don't have any alternates or anything like that, so it's going to be a straight base bid. Turn that around pretty quickly, and then it's just a matter of paperwork at that point, and there should be no reason why they can't mobilize almost immediately. Give you an example, we did the temporary HVAC, so that was another small project, base bid, no alternates. We were able to turn around that paperwork relatively quickly. That process, contractor had 10 days. They got it signed. We got it back. Was a little hiccup in one of the contractor's paperwork. Attorney caught it. They fixed it. We actually had a pre-construction meeting today, so they're actually mobilizing next week to start that project. So.
Why don't we have the team, go through the presentation quickly, and then we can do questions at the end of the scope. That'd be great.
So again, another update on the schedule. We're currently in the construction document phase, preparing the final construction documents. We talked about, asking the board to approve release for bid in June. We'll have a bid period June into July, and then come back to you in August. And intend to award it in the August meeting, and notice to proceed in August as well. At the same time, we'll be working our way through the permitting process. That's, as I indicated earlier, is moving along pretty well. Intention is to be recording all of the land development approvals in September, and be able to pull the building permit in October for the project. Construction will begin in October. We anticipate completing the construction of the new elementary school in June of 2027. And then over that summer of 2027, we intend to demolish the existing Hythen Elementary School. And as I think we've presented to you before, the plan to get a portion of the new parking lot in and the bus loop in before school starts, and then we'll finish the parking lot in the fall of 2027. So we'll be all wrapped up. Goal is to be all wrapped up by the November of 2027. So it's a long ways off, though. Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about the scope of the project?
Sure, happily. So this is the slide documenting graphically and there in text form the demolition project. So you can see the indications of the two houses that we discussed earlier, and then the annex building footprint. And so it's those three structures that are being demolished. We're indicating there an approximate fence line, so there'd be a safety fencing around the work at the houses. There's basements to those houses, so they will be filled in and graded off. And as Mr. Morris mentioned earlier, that will create a flat spot down there with access off of Roberts Road. And then then we're installing the temporary playground, and then we're also taking the opportunity to remove some of the trees that are only being removed because of their proximity to where the new building will be. So, as we discussed last time, we're actually taking care to try to retain large, healthy trees on the site where we can. But the ones, the trees, the large trees that are very close to the existing building, we want to take those down over the summer so that, again, when school's back in session, and there's little red indication to each one there. So you can see they're the ones that are very close to the school in particular, that just from a safety and noise and convenience standpoint, we're taking those down as part of this project.
So that big grove that has this big red circle around it, you're taking all of that?
So that's on the slope that is between the existing building and the houses along there, as you can see. That's an area where there will be some regrading associated with the new building. That is not particularly a healthy, attractive grove of trees. So as you know, there's been a study of the trees on the property. There's been a lot of tree loss in past years. So, yeah, of course, this drawing doesn't indicate the quality of it, but it's not the kind of trees that we're trying to save elsewhere on site that are large, healthy canopy trees.
And all these tree removals have been approved by the Shade Tree Committee
Yes, they
also.
have.
Yes.
Yep.
So what's the total number? This looks like a tremendous number of trees. What does
Do you
anybody
recall
have?
the
We're
number?
estimating approximately 90 trees as
90.
part of this project. That's,
And those 90, again, those 90 were part of the original Ithan project overall. They're actually being pulled out, so we're not doing an additional 90 or any additional trees. We're only taking out trees that were identified for the full scope of the project and what we presented to Shade Tree.
All right, so next slide will indicate this is the footprint of the annex building. This is the temporary playground itself. So there's two different surface materials. One is a rubber tile, sort of an interlocking surface that's placed down over tightly graded and compacted stone for drainage, and that will be a half basketball court. So it'll feel like a hard play surface. And then the balance of it, that additional 2/3, is a mulch area with a swing set. And then, so that, there'll be some regrading around that area to create a flat surface. And then that is immediate, although you can't see it here, it's immediately adjacent to the other existing playgrounds that will remain until later in the construction cycle when they would be removed for the installation of some stormwater management basin.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the site, but just below the annex building on that drawing, there's a kidney-shaped playground area, and then a little closer to Sproul Road, there's another kidney-shaped mulch playground area. Those will remain, those will be used by the students along with the new temporary playground area. And I think that if I remember, if memory serves me correctly, there's currently a couple climbing structures on there. There's some slides. I think that's mostly it. Yeah, yeah.
So I just want to go over some of the benefits to doing this early demolition and playground installation. As you know, we've talked previously about schedule, and we're now going out to bid in June, which kind of rearranged everything. And we had previous presentations with phasing, so phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, right? And what that work looks like from the time we break ground in October 2025 to we basically open the school in 2027, right? So part of that is that we will immediately be taking down the rear playground, right? So that is where the building exists, as well as the geothermal well field, which we addressed earlier. But we wanted to put in some type of temporary playground for the kids since they're losing that back playground for the duration basically of construction. So I'm going to flip back to this, this slide right here for illustration. So as Walt had mentioned, we do have a kidney-shaped playground, which is really being utilized by kindergarten at this point, I believe. And then we have this, this other play structure here. We've got some slides. We do have a blacktop surface behind the, what they call the lodge, and then we do have this green space up here, right? So what we don't have is swing sets for the kids. So tearing down this annex building this summer allows us to put in the swing set, you know, so that we have additional play area, and then also that temporary basketball court. We do have basketball up here, but it's up on top of the hill, right? So now that the majority of the kids are going to be out using this area, it allows for some really good play surface within sight distance of supervision and stuff like that. So, so that's one of the benefits. We'll be able to have that temporary playground for the start of the 2025. We talked about the two houses in need of costly repairs, right? So we have to do something with them. Demolition seems to be the best option at this point. All of this work was originally included in the scope of the project with regards to the overall Ithan project because of the schedule was a little bit different, right? We had an opportunity to do the playground and the demolition a little bit differently. With the schedule change, we're kind of, we don't have to, I'm going to be honest, we don't have to tear these buildings down right now, but we will not have the playground or that temporary playground for 2025. We probably won't have it for the duration of the project. So there's a huge benefit there to that. And then again, we're creating a flat area here, has potential for future use, not discussed yet. And then also, one of the benefits to this is we're able to take down, we have several large trees around the building that if, you know, we break ground in October, would have to immediately, pretty much day one, be taken down. So these are in close proximity. So just as a safety factor, trying to take these trees down during a school day, it's beneficial to take advantage of the summertime when students aren't there. This other large grove of trees would also need to be taken down just with groundbreaking and regrading and everything like that. And again, that's it's just a lot of noisy, dirty work. It's not something, you know, that we really want to try to do with the students in the building. So those are some of the benefits to it. So. Well, I'll hand it back to you.
Standpoint, boy, this is challenging my eyesight. We have put together an estimated cost, and you know, as Ken indicated, all the construction costs were already in the project. The total project estimated cost of this is not an additional cost to you, just to give you an idea what to expect on bid day. But between, you know, general conditions, that's sort of the supervision and things like that, porta-johns, you know, et cetera, everything you need to make the project run. It actually doesn't go into construction. Removing the trees, we'd estimate about 90 of those. And then disconnecting utilities to the buildings, demolishing the buildings, infilling the basement, reseeding and the foundation area, demolishing the annex building, putting in the play area, mulch and the plastic play towel or surface we talked about, the play equipment, primarily basketball, backboard, and swing sets. And then just we're going to have to do some repairs and to sidewalks, things like that, to make sure everything ties into the playground. And then allowing for contractors' overhead and profit on that, their markups and everything. We're estimating the construction cost to be about a little over $500,000, about $525,000. Again, I'm working from memory, so my eyesight is not that good. And then we've allowed $100,000 in soft costs. That number is probably high, and is frankly allowed for within the overall project contingency. That would come out of the project contingency, but that's a high number, frankly, the more we talk a little bit about it. But that's sort of the cost of putting together the documents, putting it out to bid, and overseeing the contractors when the work's going on. So overall, a little over $600,000 we're estimating cost. Again, that cost is already baked into the project. It's not additional cost to you. Any questions on that?
Anyone have questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So with regard to this 15% contractor markup, what is that?
That's basically the cost of the contractor's, overhead and profit. Obviously, they're in business to make a profit. They have administrative costs in their office they have to cover. That's basically what that covers. Could be less than that, could be more than that, but a project of this size, I would expect it to be somewhere in that range. And then we also have some contingency in there for, frankly, this was kind of a preliminary number with some preliminary information. Drawings weren't fully developed, and so I put 10% contingency on that too for just things that I might have forgotten.
So back to that contractor markup, who actually gets paid that?
That goes to the contractor, and that'll be part of his contract when he
So
bids it.
this is whoever the bid is awarded to?
Yes.
Yes,
Not only-
that'll be part of their base bid. So anytime there's profit in any number, whether you're buying a candy bar or you're doing, some type of remodeling project. So you don't actually see it. They don't break it out to say, oh, I'm going to try to make X amount of dollars in profit. So when we get the base bid, it's assumed that it's their cost plus the markup for profit.
So you're assuming that that's not going to be broken out, like you're just putting it in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
When we estimate it, we try to estimate it like a contractor would as to this is what it's going to cost the contractor to do the work. And then what's he going to want for overhead and profit to cover his administrative costs and keep his lights on, doors open.
Okay. So I have a problem with one aspect of this, will not surprise anybody. So we're losing 90 trees just with this demolition part, but we're going to be losing a whole lot more. So what's the total loss of trees? It's 90 for this that you've circled in
I think
orange.
this is the vast majority of them, isn't it?
No, there's trees where you're building the building. There's trees, it looks like in the large grove at the bottom that are, I think you're going to take some later on. It's hard to read. The X through it is a
Right.
tree that's going to be taken, right?
And I can get you those exact numbers. We do have those on the prints, the plans and the prints. It was presented again at Shade Tree, so we went over in Land Development Shade Tree exactly how many trees we're going to take out. We have to go by the zoning ordinance for, we take out X amount of trees, certain caliber, we have to plant, trees as replacement. So while we're taking trees out, we're also replacing trees. And then we do have the reforestation plan that was approved by Shade Tree. So the exact number, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can get it for you.
So do we have to take all these trees? I mean, obviously where you're building the building, you can't have a tree there. Although it would be cool to have a tree going through the, architect, can you do that for
Unless
me?
you're
But,
Ken, then you're not
no,
supposed
I'm
to.
joking. But this whole grove, like, do we really have to take all these trees? Like, it's not the same when I know that there's a plan and you're gonna plant little baby trees in 2 years. It's not the same as a mature,
Yeah, and I think
tree
it's
in
best
our
to show
area.
you on the actual plan set, which we plan to do, exactly the location of the new building, the retaining walls and the slope, and how it really coincides with what you're seeing here, right? This doesn't paint a good picture of the actual overall site and why it's important. that we take those trees down with regards to retaining walls and the steep slopes and the regrading and everything like that. So I think it's best illustrated on one of the plan sets for you.
Could we, something we could
it-
bring back in April, or, sorry to cut you off, but maybe in April, come and talk
Fine.
about the trees for the whole, but if you have an answer, go ahead.
Well, I mean, just in general, to answer your question directly, no, we're not taking down any trees we don't have to. So with a project of this type, with the land development, you establish a limit of work, a limit of disturbance, and that's defined by the area of the building itself, as well as the grading associated with that. And then there's a line on the plan, and we're only taking down trees that are necessary for the construction of the building and the regrading around it. The reforestation plan is going into areas within that regrading, but then also outside of it, and improving. So the reason, I think it's safe to say in large part, that we got the support of the tree commission and the township authorities was because in concept, what we're doing is we're improving the situation. Again, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but a large percentage, more than 50% of the trees in that grove down below the building were dead, or dying or deceased because of them being ash trees and other things. So I think the concept and the approval are related to the fact that we are improving the situation long-term on the site. And no, we're not taking down any trees that are, as far as within the bounds of this project, that we don't need to.
If you go over and look around at the wooded areas around Ithan, I was a little bit surprised when I really took a close look at the forest, the woods areas around there, because they're not in good shape. They're heavily overgrown by vines. The vines are pulling the trees over. They're killing the trees. It's in need of this reforestation. This reforestation is going to be an improvement to what you have there right now. It's unfortunate. There are probably, I would guesstimate 15, maybe 20 trees of what I would call significance that we're taking out, which are, large caliper, healthy trees, but they're all right around the existing school and in the area where we need to take them out for the new school. Any of the, like that grove that we were looking at, that's pretty much overgrown with vines and just in very poor condition. I'm with you. I hate to see trees being cut down. I
Well,
climbed enough of them
yeah.
as a youth.
So, yeah, just to highlight, almost a third of the cost of this is taking down trees. That just kills me. I want to save the trees, and I don't want to spend the money to take them down. So there's two reasons why I don't know. It upsets me that we're doing that. I hear what you're saying, and I just know that it might be expedient, oh, we want to re-slope this or whatever, but I just don't share that. I would rather it not be re-sloped and it look natural, and I don't mind if it looks like a forest with trees down or whatever. I like that look. I don't like it looking manicured and little baby trees planted like yesterday. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
generally speaking, I would agree with you. But like I said, I was a little disappointed whenever I took a close look and realized that the poor condition that a lot of that is. And it needs, this reforestation will actually, taking out the bad trees, the dead trees, the bad undergrowth, and planting good, healthy trees, I think will actually, in the long run, help that area significantly.
Yeah, and maybe if we do that presentation in April about what we're taking out, maybe take some photographs for us to look at. Because I know I've walked the property, and it will probably make you feel a little better when you see what they're taking out. Also, from the slope standpoint, don't we need to take them out? Like, that's not a luxury. It's not like we're being inconvenienced by them. We actually need to.
For a whole host of reasons, there's all the incentive in the world to minimize your grading, minimize your area of disturbance. We're not doing, believe me, from a cost and land development standpoint, you don't regrade if you don't have to. So we're doing the absolute minimum, yeah.
Just a couple comments. Along the lines of trees, if there is a reforestation station, I wonder if there's a way that we can include the kids in that process when we do that, if we have to take them down, right?
Be an
And then
interesting idea.
regrowth, and then
Yeah.
regrow that area. The second thing is, I know a third, you're looking at the trees, but I could be wrong, but if I add all of the line items that have to do with the temporary playground area, I think it comes up to 140. Is that right?
Could well be.
But I do recognize that the plastic play surface tile can be reused, so that's 60,000.
Yeah,
Right.
so, I went through it, because we did talk about it last time.
Yeah.
There's approximately, now, we're not gonna recoup all of the cost because that also includes, buying it and then installation and stuff like that. But line item, if you go through it, on this sheet, it adds up to about 85,000, but it is the plastic play structure tile. We're specifically using that because we can take that up, relocate it, and reuse it somewhere else, right?
Okay.
Now, the basketball backboards, plan on seeing how we can salvage those. We talked about reusing the swing set in some area. Now, some of the things, yes, the mulch, of course, is kind of like a sunken cost, and as well as some of the, the base for flattening it out in the stone and things like that, the wooden border and things like that. So there is some overall cost that, will get demoed when we, as we go along with the project, but it is those main three items that we do plan on somehow trying to salvage. So.
Okay. All right.
I just have one question about the word additional professional services and permits. So, I mean, because I'm under, I think we stated tonight that this is not costing us any more to do this early because it's included in the scope of the overall project. So can you speak to why we're talking about an additional services? And
Sure, yes. When to the first point, impact on the cost overall. So from the cost of construction standpoint, what we're saying is that all of this is work that is part of the scope of the project in general, okay? And the additional soft costs associated with it is within the contingency of the project. So it's not affecting the overall project of the cost. It's not, or the project, it's not raising that. What is additional in terms of, and what would be, pulling from contingency in a sense, is the administrative cost of the second bidding. So the professional costs at the outset of the project included a certain period of time and a single bid for the project. And so we're changing those two things. We're extending the duration by a couple of months, and then there is cost associated with the administration of the bidding, going through that process, preparing the bids, getting them back, that sort of thing. And then the actual on-site work of observing that construction for that extra period of time. So it's just the professional fees associated with managing the separate bid process and overseeing an slightly extended period of construction.
But wouldn't you have to oversee that if it was, like, if we waited to do the demolition to when we broke ground, you'd be overseeing the demolition then, so there'd be fees included in in the overall project.
Yeah, right. But it's overlapping. It's part of, it's not extending the duration. So it would, what's happening here is the construction management and the architect services are being extended. So we're pulling that out and doing it separately at a different time. So if this work was all just part of the main project, which originally it was anticipated to be, it would just be being observed along it wouldn't be involving extra time.
But, I mean, I guess this speaks to 100,000 is very generous, because if you're managing bids at 100, I mean, and the actual person doing the construction is only gonna make 62,000 based on this. So it would seem way out of whack for when we've already spent all this money to develop these plans. And so I challenge us to think about that, because that's gonna be a hard one, because the whole idea of moving forward with this right now is that it is actually, I believe the administration's recommendation is to do this because I can say just on, because while I love trees, they scare me, and especially with children, and the idea of taking advantage of an empty campus, doing some, to your point, dirty and dangerous work, I see a real advantage. And if we're going to be moving forward anyway with this, I can see that, but I think it was sold to us as this is kind of a creative way to get ahead of it so that we could hit the ground running in November, and not be disruptive to the children, as least disruptive as we can be, right? And to the community, because you're going to be talking about that once you start construction, I imagine the space that we have to move the existing students and families through that campus is going to be challenging, right? I mean, that's part of it, right? So I guess, and then my question, because I'm seeing this as, I think this is what, we really our off-ramp, and I think you have this right here, is why not get the bids so we know what this costs? Because, I mean, so from the time, we approve it next week to say, let's move forward to bid, are we incurring more costs to get the bids? Or have we already sunk those costs?
No, that is part of the cost, is getting the bids. So let me just add one thing that might be helpful is, as Walt explained, you're comparing it to the overhead and profit of the contractor, right? That's just a percentage markup on the value of the work. When we're talking about these additional supplemental services, according to the agreement, for this work, this is hourly. So we're not just randomly coming up with a number of $100,000. That was an estimate to try to just make sure we had something in there. But this would be an hourly exercise. So you're only getting charged for the hours specifically allocated to this work. So in terms of the fact that we're already here attending meetings, we're going to seek to make that as efficient as possible. And if we're already here for a meeting and we talk about this, well, then we don't need to charge on top of it. You follow me? So it's an hourly exercise. You're only getting charged for the work specifically associated with this function of this. So it's not just, we're not just saying, oh, how about $100,000? That's a number, that's a placeholder in there that also includes the permits. I mean, that's an additional cost that this project will incur to the township, right? Because we're now applying for 2 permits, not 1. And so, you're right. It's a recommendation because we see a value that exceeds whatever this relatively small sunk cost is.
I know I had a board member reach out to me with some concerns, and I just think, I don't know if you can do this in the next week, but maybe challenge you to kind of come up with what will those fees be for permitting that we will need to have 2 sets of permitting, and what do you estimate the hourly cost of your time to bring this to bid? Because I think that board members will want to see that to evaluate, like, given the concerns that I think are starting to be expressed with the overall project, not like in terms of what's this going to come back at,
That's a
not,
fair-
you know.
That's a fair request, and I think that's very doable.
And
Yeah, I
if
wanna-
you could explain, how that, so that line item there, where it says estimated soft cost, so if all of this had been in the project, so we go out to bid in June, and we accept bids for the entire project in August, if we had bundled all of this together, so then this wouldn't exist?
Some of it would not.
Most of it.
Most would not, yeah.
So I just want to support Ms. Duffy. So that's coming out as 20% of this estimate is this additional professional services and permits. But you also have 10% built in for contingency. So put those two together, you've got 30% of this bid is like fluff, really, to us. We don't know what that is. So that does seem really high. I just want to support what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Do you have any questions for us? I mean, are you clear on,
No, I think we're
okay,
clear.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll run through it real quick. I can do it real quick. All right. So again, recommendation is to allow us to go out or approve us to go out to solicit bids. So board authorizes advertisements for demolition next week at the board meeting. We would advertise 2 days later in the public newspaper, solicit those bids. We would receive those bids in April, do our due diligence and review, come back to the Facilities Committee meeting in May with the overall bid costs and with a recommendation at that time for the lowest responsive bidder. And then the off-ramp, again, is the May board, so that's the point where you vote on it, you sign contracts, you kind of commit the funds and the work at that point. And then we would quickly issue an intent to award, a notice to proceed, start demolition pretty much right at the start of summer, and then completion, have everything done and out of the way with the playground ready to go by the end of August. So ready for September 2nd, first day of school, or 3rd. 2nd.
Okay, thank you. Any new business? Public comment? Okay. And I'll just say the next Facilities Committee meeting will be April 15th at 5 PM. Thank you.